Hey, what's up guys? Mr. Roark again. Alright, so now we're on to our third shape, which is the surface area of a triangle. Now, I will say this formula is a little bit different than what the other two were for a rectangle and parallelogram. And I guess also for a square, which is base times height. But on this formula, we're going to add a 1/2, okay? And I'll show you why in just a minute, okay? My formula for the area of a triangle, okay, is going to be A equals 1/2 times base times height, okay? So, here's how this formula works, okay? I've got a right triangle here. We're going to go ahead and call this shape, we're going to call this part 12, we're going to call this part 10. What I'm going to also do is I'm going to show you another shape, which is going to also be a triangle. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and make another one, which is going to be, we'll call this one 10, and we'll make it an isosceles triangle, okay? We'll do it like that, so it's dotted. And we're going to call the height of this one 12, okay? Now we're going to stick with inches like we have been, so we're going to call this 10 inches, this 12 inches, this 10 inches, and this is going to also be 12 inches, okay? When I solve for these triangles, all right, it's really important to remember this 1/2 because it's going to come into play here in a few minutes, okay? Now, for this first part, we know the bottom part of this triangle, in this case, is 12, okay? So here I can say A equals base times height. We know that the base is going to be 12, okay? Over here, I know that the bottom part of this is going to be 10. So A equals base height. Base is going to be 10. The bottom of this triangle is 10, okay? The height of this triangle in this case is going to be, on this triangle, is going to be 10. So right now I have 12 base times 10 height. 12 times 10. Over here, my bottom is 10. The height of this triangle is going to be 12. So basically what I've got here is 12 times 10. And here I've got 10 times 12. Kind of like if we have 2 times 3, we know that's 6. And if we have 3 times 2, we know that's going to also be 6. Okay, so this answer is going to be the same. If I multiply 12 times 10, or 10 times 12, I'm going to get an area of 120. And same over here. 10 times 12 is 120. The most important part comes into play now. That 1/2. We need to ask ourselves, what is half of 120? Or same thing over here, what is half of 120? Basically, what is that answer if I divide it by 2? If I divide 120 by 2, or half of it, or if I divide this by 2, or find half of it, I'm going to get an answer of 60. Okay, so that's going to be 60, and this over here is going to also be 60. Okay, now like we said before, we want to make sure that when we're talking about surface area, we're using square units. So in this case, we're talking inches, so it's going to be inches squared. And once again, what that means is if I have a bunch of little squares in here that are 1 inch by 1 inch, it's going to take me 60 of them to fill the entire triangle up. Now a lot of students want to ask me, why do we do 1/2? I'm getting ready to show you. I'm going to use a blue marker for this one. This 1/2 means what we're doing is, if you remember back when we talked about rectangles and parallelograms, and even when we talked about squares, base times height, okay, we use. Now, if I took another triangle that was the equal size of this one, and I made another triangle on top of it, what I have just created is another rectangle, okay? So I have base of the rectangle times height of the rectangle, but I'm only using half of it, which is why I divide that by 2, or I cut it in half. Same thing over here. If I take a couple of little triangles like this, like I split it in the middle, and I put one over here, put one over here, what I've created is I've created another rectangle, okay? A rectangle that is 10 at the base and 12 at the height, okay? If I take these two off, or if I divide that triangle by 2, what I've done is I've created a triangle, okay? So, if that's confusing, and like I said, if you guys have any questions, you can always come find me in room 12, but that's kind of a brief explanation of how we find the surface area of triangles. Don't forget, we have to find half of whatever the base times the height is, alright? Thanks, guys.